And you left school at 14?
Yeah.
And then just,
Yeah,
that was
I went
it.
to high school for like 2 months.
You're just like, I can't, I'm done.
Oh, it's the stupidest waste of time.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're not advocating not graduating high school, though.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Really?
Huge waste of time. There's this weird conflating of a high school diploma with a path to success. It makes literally no sense. Taking someone who's 14 and saying, go into an institutionalized learning facility which will give you no real-world life skills for 4 years. Talk about wasting formative years. What I did, I was programming websites, I was doing Flash animation, I was making video games, I was playing music, I was traveling, I was skateboarding. Traveling around the area, the city, meeting people, and expanding my horizons while my friends were locked in a box, learning for the 5th year. So, like, I can't even tell you they learned anything, because the reason why I was like, I'm done with this, I remember going to high school math class, we'll call it. Teacher walks in, she goes, turn to page 17 and do those problems, and then walks out of the room, and then we're all sitting around like, what just happened? And that was
public school?
every single math class was that. And I'm like, okay. And my favorite was sitting in a room in English class and having someone go, the teacher says, all right, everyone turn to page 47, and we're going to read the story from Mark Twain. And I'm sitting there, and then, Jeremy, can you read the encyclopedia, Jeremy?
Today, Junior. Yeah.
And so I'm just like, bro, I could read this whole thing in 10 seconds. What am I doing here? This is wasting my time. So I just stopped and go, I'm out.
Were you living with your parents at the time?
Yeah, with my mom, my parents were split up. And then actually what happened was I'm 14, and they did this weird thing where they changed our schedule from, in grade school, it was 7:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Then they decided for freshman year at the local high school, we're going to do 10:45 a.m. to like 5:30 p.m. And a lot of parents were upset. They were like, this means that in winter, 14-year-old kids are going to be leaving high school in the dark. Like, that's crazy. And so it was like a kind of a cultural shock for me at 14, because you'd get out of school at 2:30, you'd go to the park. You'd hang out with your friends, you'd come home, it's 2:30 of the whole day ahead of you, school got out, woo. Now it's like I wake up at 6 in the morning, because that's what the schedule always had been my entire life. But now I'm sitting in my living room with my hands on my knees like, daytime TV, People's Court is on, what am I supposed to do with this? Get to school at 10:45, get out at 6, and it's time for dinner, time for bed. And so it was ridiculously stressful. And then after 2 months of insane nonsense, not learning a damn thing, I'm 14, I'm halfway to school, and I just sit down in the grass, I started crying, and then I got up and turned around, went home, called my mom and said, I'm not going to school anymore.
What'd she say?
I can't really remember. I think she said okay.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
Your mom was just
She's
cool with you
freaking
dropping out of
supportive
high
as
school
hell.
in ninth grade?
I went from being a straight A student to a straight F student from grade school to high school. And so my parents were already like, something's not happening
What
here.
changed during that time? Like, did you have a life-changing event, a bad breakup? Were you smoking weed? Were you hanging out with some crowd? Were you reading a new book? Were you into something or no?
Nope.
Really?
No. In my life, I've smoked weed a handful of times. It just doesn't do anything for me. Wasn't hanging out with a bad crowd. Playing music. But I think the big issue was I'm since I was a little kid, my family's had computers. I built my first computer when I was probably 7 or 8 years old. It sounds impressive to the average person, but it's like I went to a thrift store, bought 5 pieces, and stuck them together like Legos. It's not the craziest thing in the world. Installed Windows on it. So my family's got CompuServe. We've got AOL. I'm online. I'm reading about the president. I'm reading about the world.
This is Clinton at this point, or Bush?
This was, I think this was Bush. Yeah, this is shortly after 9/11, I think. I think so. I think I was 14. It's shortly after. So I'm reading all this stuff online about what's going on. Not a whole lot, but I was programming things in Flash. I was making websites. I was skateboarding. In my life, I'm doing all of these things that every day was improving. Learning how to use Flash to make a website, and everyone's like, "Wow, you made a website." Making an animation where, I mean, they're crude Flash animations like Newgrounds.com stuff, but every day I could see something more. I started programming video games. Within 5 days, I've made a rudimentary video game that's kind of like Mario Bros. A platformer where you play a little guy running through a factory and there's little monsters and stuff. These are things that were tangible that I could see were being completed. Then I go to school and they're tying my hands together and saying, "Sit down, shut up, and do nothing." And it's like being locked in prison. And so eventually I was just like, I'm not doing this. I'm done.
You have kids?
No.
When you have kids, you're going to send them to high school?
Probably not. No, probably not. I mean, I'm going to homeschool. I plan on having kids, but they're going to be homeschooled. Probably some kind of local pod learning thing. You want kids to socialize with each other, but I think kids should be learning from adults, not from kids. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that we do today as a society is we have children learn from each other. We separate kids from their parents like cows and calves. Then we put the kids in a box where they don't care for the teacher and the teacher doesn't care for them. And then all of their social interactions are predicated upon other kids, the behaviors of other kids. When I was growing up, my family had a coffee shop. All of my social interactions are with people in their 30s who are buying coffee and complaining about Republicans or Democrats. So here I am, I'm 10 years old, and all I want to do is buy Pokemon when it comes out, and I'm trying to save it for the tip jar. But when I'm sitting there, the conversation isn't, did you hear what Billy said about, Power Rangers? It's, did you see what policy was passed? I can't believe they're doing this. And that's the stuff I'm absorbing. The behaviors I'm learning from are adults in semi-professional settings. They're at the coffee shop, they're writing, they're working, or they're playing music. My mom's showing me how to manage the business and the finances. Then I go back to I'm like 6th or 7th grade, and all of the kids are imitating each other. So what's going to happen when these kids grow up? Well, I'm not surprised to find that I'm running a business, and most of my friends are just working regular jobs. They've not gone. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that everyone has to do it. I'm saying don't be surprised if you take a kid, you put them in an environment where they learn how businesses work and businesses run, and when they grow up, they're doing those things. You plant the seeds; those seeds will grow.
Pat, you're a similar story, right?
Well, not 14, but there's a part of what he's talking about that, he's got a good point. I mean, what we don't know about is the following. Tim, how old are you? 86 is what? So
37.
So you're 37. Okay, so we don't know what it is to be 14 today. Think about it. We don't know what it is to be 14 today and how you're fed stuff and, how you view the world when you're talking about, you're in high school and you're going through it. And, we were at AOL chat. Like, I'm thinking 1994 was AOL chat. If a friend of you was on AOL chat, hey, meet me in this room, and you would go, and I was like, oh my God, turn on the AOL chat. You wait like a couple minutes. So things in journalism is changing in a very different way. Think about today's Tim Pool. Tim at 14 years old today. What is that kid doing today?
Wow.
What route is he taking? What's pissing him off? What journey is he going to be going through? Where 20 years from now, the next Tim Pool you're sitting and he's telling us about what it's like to be 14 in 2023, and we have to sit there and watch it. I got an 11-year-old, 9-year-old, 6-year-old, and a almost 2-year-old in a month. And I talk to them and ask them, so what do you learn in school about politics? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And with Tico, he can have a full-blown conversation with you at 11.
Yeah.
He wants to have that conversation. Dylan wants to talk Patrick Mahomes. Dylan wants to talk sports. He's a sports guy. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens next 20 years with this.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.